Hello and welcome to Tough Pigs at 20, a Muppet fan podcast from ToughPigs.com. This is the series where we're looking back on the past 2 decades of the website for Muppet fans who grew up, featuring interviews with the writers and artists who helped make it happen. Our guest today was the very first regular Tough Pigs contributor, often joining forces with our founder, Danny Horn, on some of the funniest commentaries in Muppet fandom. He's also an accomplished TV comedy writer, known for Rove Live, Full Frontal, Hard Quiz, and a bunch of other shows we haven't heard of because they're all Australian. We are extremely proud to welcome Kynan Barker to the podcast. Hello, Kynan.
Hey, Joe. How are you? I think you can add Frogger to that list by the time this comes out. Peacock will have a new streaming show, and my name will almost definitely not be on it, but I promise you I was there.
Well, your word against Damon Wayans Jr., I guess. But yes, you're writing for a TV series about a frog that is not Kermit the Frog.
That's not Kermit the Frog. Can you imagine? Adapted for the computer game, and it's for NBC, so they don't own any Muppet stuff. So I couldn't make a single Muppet reference despite a show with Frog in the title.
Terrible.
And
You couldn't make a reference to "It's a Very Merry Muppet Christmas," which aired on NBC.
The people were begging for, yeah.
Yeah. Just that one shot of Kermit crossing his legs with a little NBC logo on the bottom of his foot. That's it.
But yeah.
So, Kynan, you were like I said, you were right there at the beginning, pretty much at the beginning of Tough Pigs, the first actual contributor after Danny. How did that happen? How did you join Tough Pigs?
So we were on a fan forum. It was the other fan forum. It was not the Tough Pigs fan forum because that didn't exist. And then Danny one day just said, "Okay, I'm starting a website," and we all watched with awe as 1,000 years of content instantly appeared overnight, and he just started this website, and part of it was, I guess, he thought I might be a neat contributor, but I think most of it was just about the fact that he was writing 10 articles a day and needed anyone else to contribute even a comma, which for a lot of the articles we ended up doing was about the extent of my contribution. But it was it was really fun. I wrote some things from Melbourne. We recorded some things. I was going to say we recorded some things via audio, but we didn't. We watched stuff and chatted through MSN Messenger. It was that long ago, and
wow.
that was
I definitely have questions for how those collaborations
how it worked.
But continue, please.
It was basically just me fooling around with Danny whenever he and I had some spare time at the same time, and me as the professional comedy writer trying to keep up with him, who just was not just the Muppet fount of knowledge, but genuinely a hilarious guy.
Yes.
And
you both are. I mean, that's definitely you became this incredible comedy duo for Muppet fandom, which you complemented each other very well when you wrote together.
I don't know how far behind the curtain you guys want to go, but there are lines when I look back at those, especially those two-handers. There are lines where I was like, I am definitely sure I did not say that, and he's punched up my material and done it really well. He sounds like me better than I do in a couple of those things, but it was
good.
It was good fun. It was super good fun.
That's great. Well, let's go back in time, all the way back to April 22nd, 2002. I believe this is the first article that you were credited with writing. It's definitely the first one you're credited with writing solo. It was day one of My Week with Sesame Music. The My Weeks, if people don't recall, was Danny's concept of doing a full week of themed articles. And this one you were reviewing, I believe, Sesame albums.
Yes.
And Danny started with a disclaimer, because I guess this was probably the first article that was not written by Danny on Tough Pigs. He said, this week's My Week column is written by my new deputy My Weeker, Kynan Barker. Yeah, he's a substitute, but he's fab. So I don't want you kids throwing spitballs and forging hall passes just because my back is turned. He's brought a box full of Sesame CDs, and he's ready to party. You're in good hands. And then you wrote a classic article reviewing the album Platinum 2.
Which, if memory serves, I really loved. In fact, a lot of that is still on my like in my actual rotation playlist.
Oh, great.
Platinum 2. Can you have you got it in front of you? Can you run me through some of the hits?
Yes, I can. And I'm going to talk slowly while I bring it up on the Muppet Wiki. Okay, so it's got Somebody Come and Play, classic. Just Happy to Be Me, no idea what that is. What's the name of that song? That's also the name of the song. I'll skip around. Caribbean Amphibian, that's a great song.
Yes.
The Word Is No, a genuine bop.
Yes.
Let's see, Believe in Yourself, Everybody Makes Mistakes, The Ballad of Casey McPhee, Mana Mana. This is a great album.
Definitely, definitely Word Is No and Caribbean Amphibian, probably Mana. They all ended up on my son's first birthday playlist. So I heard them like 2 months ago, and we played it at a gathering for like 80 people, and they went off. They went right off.
20 years later, you're still spinning those tunes. I love it.
Still spinning those same tunes, yeah. And if I also think that review was probably more earnest than it should have been, because I genuinely liked a lot of the music. And it's hard to find the jokes when you're like, isn't Caribbean Amphibian great? Doesn't the rhyme scheme work wonderfully?
Well, that's something that we always talk about, of like, it's nice to like things, but it's hard to write about things you like. But it's so much fun to write about things that you hate.
Absolutely, yes, yeah, and I'm sure there's some haters coming up. But that was there a theme to that article? Was there an overarching? I don't remember a thing.
I mean, it was just, you were just talking about the music that you like, which is fine. I mean, you had a whole week of writing about music that you had to get through. So I did not. I admit I did not revisit every article you've written.
It's the sort of thing that if anyone should have, it should have been me.
See, and this is part of my problem too. Is I go back and reread
my old
articles, and like I don't remember any of the stuff that I wrote.
No. But I played it for my roommates, and then quoted them.
So you were even doing collaborative articles back with your first one, with your solo article.
Can you imagine? I said to my housemate, "What it must be like for kids to hear this stuff every day. What a positive music this music has." And she said, "Yeah, but the word there was kids. Adults aren't supposed to listen to this stuff." And she believed it. But that's true. It's true. They're really not. Let alone spend a week writing about it.
Well, let alone write about this stuff for 20 years.
For 20 more years, yes.
Yeah. Oops. But no, that's great. It was a great way to kick off your long history with ToughPigs. You went on to do several of my weeks for Danny. You did Sesame Music. You did Sesame Home Video. You did Muppet Music with some of the Muppet albums. You wrote a series of articles for a week. My Week with Muppets Online.
Oh my gosh!
Written in 2002.
Yes.
And
so I was reviewing ToughPigs, right?
Yeah, please go ahead.
No, I don't know. It was ToughPigs from memory. It was ToughPigs. It would have been Muppet Central, Henson.com, and maybe there was a Muppet site as well that was live at the time. Or was it only fan sites?
No, you split it up between one day was just fans, one day was just the official Henson stuff, one day was official Sesame stuff, etc., etc.
Yes.
And it works so well as this amazing time capsule of like what the internet was like in 2002 and like what the state of online Muppet fandom was.
Yes.
Steam powered, right.
Yeah. And you could hear the gears clanking as you fired it up. And it ended with a little challenge of like there should be super niche websites.
That's
there
right.
There should be like a Beauregard.org that somebody loves Beauregard, you know. And I think at least one person said you would like that inspired me to start like a side project on my blog or whatever. I don't remember what it was, and I don't remember if it lasted, but it was nice just to know that someone was like, yes, that's right. I really enjoyed the Grand Poobah and he deserves his own website.
Yeah, and it's what's interesting about that too is your list. A lot of the stuff that you said I want more of ended up kind of being stuff that would be stored on the Muppet Wiki, like not necessarily where we're talking about being a fan, but like where do we store all this stuff? Where do we we just talking about these lists People like Muppet fans
Yeah.
loved making lists back then, and now there wasn't a place for it yet. Now there is.
Yeah, and I remember when wikis didn't exist, and then people had to explain what wikis is, and it just blew people's an online encyclopedia that anyone can edit, and then
Right.
and there's also one, like, it's not just one for the whole world. There's one for the Arrowverse, and there's one for Muppets, and there's one just in case anyone wants one for the reboot of Knight Rider.
It's there, just
there.
waiting for all your free labor to fill it out. Fill it in.
And that's the stuff that I really get a kick out of reading. I'm a credits man. I'm a behind the scenes man, and it doesn't have to be written in an entertaining way. I just was like, oh, really? He did that arm?
Yeah, I love it. So there's a few other things I want to mention that you've written back in the day before we get into your collaborations with Danny. Danny wrote apparently a scathing review of Animal Jam, and
Yes.
you found it important enough to write a counterpart explaining how much you love Animal Jam.
A rebuttal to Animal Jam.
Do you still love Animal Jam?
So there's two or three things at work here. One is that I no longer own a DVD player that plays Region 1. So a lot of my Muppet content is sitting on a shelf, like unwatchable right now. Some of that got fixed by streaming services, but I don't think Animal Jam is out there. The other thing that happened was my brother had kids, and so I donated a lot of the preschoolish stuff, like some of the Sesame Beginnings and some of the Spiffy Pictures things that I really enjoyed then, like what's it called? Buddies.
What are you talking about? Squishy Pictures?
No, Spiffy Pictures. Sorry, this is Rudman's.
Yes.
So
I'm sorry, I misheard you. Yes.
No, that's right. So yeah, a lot of the Spiffy Pictures things. That it was David Rudman's projects, Jack's Big Music Show, and Curious Buddies. They all went to my nephews, and I haven't seen them since. Right. So Animal Jam, they would have gone there as well. But then the third thing that happened is that maybe I don't like Animal Jam that much anymore. It was definitely much more of a raucous kids show genre than you would expect from Muppets, and I liked the Muppety bits, but the big Bozark the Elephant. Looking back on it, I was probably just more angry about how mean Danny was than I was happy about how great the show was.
Well, and especially, Danny made a brand out of being mean and snarky,
The
and
cranky
also funny,
guy.
but he really prided himself on his crankiness on ToughPigs, and because it was just Danny was the only one running the show. There's no one to challenge him. There's no one to tell him that he's wrong. So that was up to you.
It's weird that Animal Jam was the hill I decided to die on for, though. really dug my heels. But to be fair, that was at the time that was the best we'd ever seen Leslie. Until then, she had kind of been Spamela, and no one had thought about her. And it was, so we saw Leslie, we saw Johnny T performing a main role for the first time. It was the first time we saw Ricky before he did Scooter in a big way. Right. There's some talent there, some talent on that set. It just, it was Animal Jam.
Right. Animal Jam, forever in our hearts. So, like we said, you did a lot of collaborations with Danny. You did some more My Weeks. You reviewed some Storyteller episodes. You did a lot of Christmas stuff. You really, you did several parts. I think you did a whole week on Muppet Christmas Carol, and you did several parts on some of the more well-known specials like Muppet Family Christmas or the Bear or the Big Blue House special. Let's start with, how did you actually do it? It seems like you're watching live and commenting live. Like, now this is happening, now that's happening.
We were a bunch of hemispheres apart, like 7 or 8 hemispheres apart for almost all of them. And what we would do, it varied. It depended on our availabilities. I was very low tech back then. We would basically watch them separately, take our own notes, and then Danny would do. Then we'd meet in like MSN Messenger or some other chat forum, and Danny would do like a play-by-play. He would go, all right, now here we're watching the credits. So it felt like we were watching it together, and I would just refer to my notes. So it was pretty much the ideal way to do director's commentary, because you didn't have to be witty in the first draft. You could type backspace, and that's how we did a few of those. And then, like I said, Danny would punch me up, and it would all come out better. There were a few where I was in his living room, because I did go to the States a couple times. So there were a few days we did Mr. Willoughby's Christmas tree in real life. So my bewilderment there was utter and genuine. I didn't have a chance to make notes. He just was like, I'm shoving this at you and recording the things you say. And most of the things I say... It's
the only way to watch that special.
And there was a few of those. I think we watched probably Very, Very Merry Muppet Christmas. We watched together as well. I think he might have seen it first, but and then some where we weren't pretending to watch that. It was just a collaborative article, and that was he would do a draft, I would do a draft. You know, it would all kind of end up meshed up together. But Danny put a lot of work into making those seem like more spontaneous than they obviously were, because hey, that's showbiz. Gosh, memories.
We when Ryan and I took over ToughPigs, we wanted to try and find a way to emulate. In our early days, especially, we were trying really hard to emulate the style of what ToughPigs was before us.
And me too.
And one of those things was we wanted to find a way to do those same types of conversation articles. We didn't know how. And Ryan and I were always in the same room. You know, we were roommates at the time, so it was easy to be like, put on, some sort of. I remember we watched some of those sing-along videos, like Billy Bunny's sing-along and whatever. And
things that fly.
Yeah, and we were like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to watch the special, we're going to write down our notes, and then we will turn it into, because I think we may have even asked you how you did it, and that's like, that seems logical. And then we'll make it look like it's a conversation. So I have these old notes from 15 years ago where I'm like writing a conversation from both sides, and like there's no context, it doesn't make any sense, it's not even that funny. And we like very quickly realized this is not a way to write an article. Like, it also, like, the special goes by so fast. Like, I can't write that fast. So we didn't do it for a while. I think we maybe also tried recording ourselves talking and then transcribing it, and that didn't work because we just want to watch the special. We don't want to talk over it. So what we do now, this is our peek behind the curtain, is we will open up a Google Doc, a shared Google Doc. And we will have a conversation, even if we're sitting in the same room, just writing back and forth. And same thing, we can go back, we can edit, we can move forward. Like, you're still writing on that thing, I'm going to move on to the next segment, and we do a whole thing. We punch up each other's jokes, and it turns into something that's actually readable. But for years we could not figure out how you guys did it, and with like a 10-hour time difference.
Yeah, I mean, that was just one or the other of us just sort of stayed up late or fudged it on our real jobs, it was like, it actually helped, I guess, then that we weren't in the same room, because there was only a few options available, and Google Docs wasn't one of them back then.
That's true.
So it really was, like, a lot of them were just a text conversation back and forth. For the people wondering, MSN chat was,
I mean, you might have to explain it.
So there was a bunch of different forums where people could just meet up online and have a text conversation back and forth, and it was the old version of. We probably could have just texted, but I think it would have cost us like $1.80 each way.
Yeah.
So
Texting
this was
not free.
Yeah, this was a discussion forum, which was just messages back and forth, and you could add extra people to the room, and all of that stuff. We relied a lot less on emojis back in the day. Gilbert Gottfried does this amazing impression of Groucho Marx, not Groucho. That's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. But old Groucho, where he would tell stories and just explain everything. So we were in the newspaper, and in those days, a newspaper was printed stories, and they would deliver it to your house. Now, in those days, a house was... Yeah.
Right, and imagine Groucho Marx very slowly explaining what MSN Messenger was.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Mm-hmm. They had a computer. Now, imagine...
So most of those specials that you guys collaborated on were Christmas specials. Was it just because there were a lot of Christmas specials?
It's just a numbers game. Yeah, it's a numbers game. Well, a lot of them are my favorites. The other thing is that when I was there, and I think maybe I was in person twice, they both would have coincided with Christmas, just because of the way my vacation plans worked out. So it was easy to watch. And if you're going to watch a bunch of things thematically, then it's just a numbers game. You're going to end up with Christmas at the wazoo for Muppets.
It's true. It's true. So how did you get your hands on all these specials? Because not all the stuff that you were reviewing was available on DVD.
Danny had them.
VHS?
No, Danny had them, and he would send them to me on CD, or he would send me a VHS. And he had a good collection. He was recording not just the specials and stuff. He was recording the Wheel of Fortune appearances and all of that kind of stuff. So every couple of weeks or month or so, I would get this amazing collection of, and back then you couldn't access anything. Like YouTube had nothing. Maybe YouTube wasn't there. I don't even know.
No, not 2002. It wasn't. I don't think.
Right. Yeah. So he would just send me these video cassettes, and I would scroll through them, and I would be like, "Hey, look, Miss Piggy on Regis," and so some of it was for fun, and then a lot of it was for review purposes. God, it really does feel like ancient history, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the thing is, like, we talk a lot about the trading circles and how back then, if there was something that you wanted to see, Muppet-wise, like you had to go to the fan community, you had to have something rare that someone else wanted, and say, I'll give you a special Sesame Street Christmas if you give me Mr. Willoughby, and that's how you get to see things. And like for me, who I joined the Muppet fan community in 2003-ish, and just after a lot of the other big players at the time, and I didn't have anything rare.
No,
I had a couple of things that I had ripped off of Real Player. That's I don't know, do you want Bert and Ernie playing tag? And they're like, no, we have it. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just read these articles and I'll just live vicariously through Danny and Kynan, who get to see these things. That seems nice. And now it's all online. People don't worry about this. They don't know the struggle.
As it should be. I mean, I didn't have the struggle because I didn't own any of it, and I vividly remember the first time my family got the internet. I had already moved out of home, and so it was the first time I really had a chance. I just came home for vacation. The first time I really had a chance to browse the web or surf the net, and the first thing that I typed in was Muppets, and I found. I probably found Muppet Central, and it was like, oh, look at everything. Yeah. So, and that would have been 98, maybe 97, 98. Which was a long time after the internet came along. But by then, people still had collected this huge amounts of knowledge. Danny had been doing Muppet Zine for 10 years by then, and so I could find interviews with Bill Barretta, who I had only ever seen as a name on the bottom of the Muppets Tonight credits.
Sure.
And so the answer to how did you get all of this stuff was other people had spent decades accumulating it, and then they went, oh, hey, you want to see this? So that was where I got Mr. Willoughby. That was how I got Muppets on Wheels.
Muppets on Wheels. Classic. Another classic. So, Kynan, what was Save the Muppets?
Joe Save the Muppets was a personal crusade. It was a massive overreaction to Disney wanting to cast extra performers. When I say overreaction, I'm still against that idea. The idea of multiple Kermits, a cruise ship Kermit and a shopping mall Kermit and a Disney Kermit,
Yes.
and then. But the overreaction was the fact that I made it about saving the Muppets. And in fact, the first bit of advice I got after I registered to SaveTheMuppets.com was, all right, don't call it Save the anything. So it was, I think we called it One Muppet, One Voice was the kind of overarching, and then massively muddled it up branding-wise with Save the Muppets. But the idea was Disney had finally bought the Muppets for $1 billion, and they realised that there are 5 guys who are the Muppets, and if they ever want to do any Muppet content, then they need to use those 5 guys. And the best way to monetize the Muppets is to have Muppets everywhere, and for Muppets to be everywhere, you need more than 5 guys. So from a business point of view, you can absolutely see where they're going. That they want to have a theme park Kermit. They want to have a Kermit who can, at the drop of a hat, show up on the Today Show, but also be available to do Leno on the other coast. I heard about this and went, well, that is going to really significantly water the characters down. It's going to create all kinds of weird conflicts, and there's a Family Guy joke about how Kermit sounds wrong now, and that was about the difference between Jim Henson and Steve Whitmire, and you could just see the Family Guy joke about Kermit sounds 19 types of wrong now. Right. Not because anyone else doing Kermit would be wrong. It would just be it's going to be their interpretation of the character. That's the fundamental kind of thing. Yeah. And then they end up competing.
Right. It does water down the characters. When it's we don't have 19 Mickey Mouses. We have 2 Mickey Mouses.
Yes,
at
yes.
any given, that's more than any other franchise.
Even that is kind of a real departure. That's radical. So I was I was talking about that, and a bunch of fans and I kind of decided that we would protest this, and it would be a letter writing campaign. It would be, I did a couple of radio interviews, and I wrote an article. Someone else wrote an article and quoted me. But it was mainly about a letter writing campaign, just to tell Disney this isn't going to work and here's why. And there was some momentum behind that as a campaign. And then Disney made this announcement, which was effectively, hey, have you ever wanted to be a Muppet? Now you can be a Muppet. And they put out this casting announcement. They were doing coast-to-coast auditions. And a lot of the fan momentum on the Save the Muppet side suddenly evaporated, which was genius on Disney's part. I know they weren't trying to combat me, but the genius was not, hey, we need extra Kermits. It was, you could be a Kermit. So Danny described it as I was the general. I'd just marched to the top of the hill, made this huge speech, and then turned around, and my army had just gone, poof, just disappeared. Because a lot of them were like, oh, wait, I could do a pretty good Fozzie. I did. We did a bunch of letters, a bunch of website updates, a bunch of here's the address of the person you want to contact, blah 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 blah, and then that's when Henson and Disney went through this whole recasting process, and they found a few alternate performers, and they did I think in the end they ended up doing 2 cruise ship performances with alternate cast, and they found Artie Esposito, who became a kind of briefly a kind of understudy Kermit, who showed up a couple of times. I have no idea whether any of my campaign made any difference at all, and me versus Disney, especially now. When was this? This was 2006.
I have to look it up, but that sounds about right. Yeah.
Looking back then, Disney was huge. Disney, it was Disney. Disney's the biggest company in the world. Now it's astonishing to think how much bigger Disney is. You would never even dream of doing this for Captain America. You could not. You would just not try to take on Disney in that kind of way and expect any impact.
Well, I will say, actually, you mentioned Captain America, and I did see recently, there's they put out a video game that has all the MCU characters in it, and they're wearing the same costumes, but all the faces look radically different because they don't have the same rights. All
They
the
don't.
voices sound very
Right.
different. And the weird thing about it is, not only do they all look like cosplayers in the end, but you have this like weird uncanny valley thing about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like this.
No, well,
I feel
it's
like you're
true.
trying to pass
Like,
this off as real, but it's not.
that kind of makes the point. Like if they were in different uniforms, if they weren't the MCU ones, or if they were, the way Teen Titans did that, like, cutesy thing. Muppet babies don't have to sound like the Muppets. There are so many ways of approaching that kind of issue without causing major, like, uncanny valley, like, what's wrong with that picture?
Yeah.
But that's not the approach Disney took. And then eventually it kind of went away. And so in my head canon, Save the Muppets saved the Muppets. In real life, Save the Muppets was like a tenth of a drop in a huge ocean, if anything. I'd be surprised if anyone I would be surprised if anyone involved in Muppets now would have Muppets these days, not Muppets now, but would have the faintest idea that it even existed. It would be like a moderate blip on the radar. But at the time, it felt quite sort of satisfying that this big thing that Disney was trying to do ended up not happening. And so with no acknowledgement from Disney that it was even going away, it just sort of petered out. We were just like, job well done, SaveTheMuppets.com.
So I'm reading about SaveTheMuppets.com on the Muppet Wiki. They have a very handy article all about this. So you ran this campaign from 2005 to 2007. Officially closed it in 2008. A couple of interesting things about it were that you received over 3,600 signatures on your petition. On the online petitions. We don't know how many people may have written letters in. There were official comments from folks like Steve Whitmire and Eric Jacobson, and Carolyn Parente, who was the executive producer at Sesame Street at the time, all in support of this campaign. But during this time, you talk about like the cruise lines and stuff like that. There was also that movies.com web series with Statler
I
and
forgot that
Waldorf.
one. Yes.
Where they had two alternate performers that were not Steve Whitmire and Dave Goelz performing Statler and Waldorf. And then some other Muppet characters like Dr. Teeth and Sam the Eagle and Sweetums and other folks who appeared in it and were not performed by their regular performers.
Yeah.
And like the fans,
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the fans hated it. They hated it.
Yes. I think I must have repressed that because that was the big ongoing, and of course it's Muppets, right? So even it's Muppet. So any ongoing production is the only thing at any given time. There's just it's the only content you're going to get, and this was just slightly wrong. TM Muppets. It was off-brand Muppets, and those guys are very talented, and they're still working. They're still working for Muppets. Like, they're technically great puppeteers. They were not bad impressions, but they were impressions, and it felt wrong. And then so the natural extrapolation from that is if this goes ahead, and then we have two Muppet films being made on opposite side of the countries with competing casts, and none of it really ever feels like Muppets again. And so much of the Muppets is about the chemistry of those 4 or 5 core performers and the characters between them. So yes, that was a big one, and I had repressed that because I did not enjoy that series. Did not enjoy that series at all.
Right. And also, like, I can also respect the idea that, like, getting yourself involved in a campaign like that where we're really championing a difficult subject, that of behind the scenes stuff. Like, we've done a lot of that as well through in the later years of Tough Pigs, and we probably shouldn't be in the middle of these stories. We should just kind of be on the outside and reporting on them. And when we put ourselves in the middle of them, it gets hard and, like, it's emotionally difficult to deal with. And we may have high hopes for enacting change, but, like, oof, like, at what cost?
It was interesting because, I mean, none of the Muppet people were involved or even really commenting. I think you mentioned Stephen and Eric. I think they did an interview where they kind of referred to it sort of obtusely.
They didn't mention the point of view.
No, of course not. I think Carolyn was the only person who ever said anything on the record, and it was only because someone asked her directly, a reporter that I had been speaking to.
And she also butchered it a little bit. She said, "One performer, one Muppet," which is not one Muppet, one voice, Carolyn.
No. And was not even technically true at the time, because Matt was doing Big Bird and Carol was doing Big Bird at the same time. But it was amazing. It was like, it was exactly what the point we were trying to make. But the arguments that I was having, most of the arguments I was having were with fans on the ToughPigs forum, and it actually really kind of sharpened my toolbox in terms of responding to Disney or responding to media comments or anything. But people were like, well, what about this? Well, how can you say, when Eric Jacobson shows up out of the blue and he can do all of Frank's Muppets flawlessly, how can you say, you can't have another... All of these sort of things. And so I would hash these arguments out with fans and then develop what I thought was the best version of it, and then that would be the one I'd bring to the radio interview. And it's not that... and they were all legitimate arguments, It's not an open and shut case. It seems to me to be, but it is the sort of thing that needs to be sort of explained to people. And I think because of that, and because Disney is huge, like if they had just done it, they had just gone ahead and done it, it would have been, a complete lost cause. If they had the power to do it, I don't think even today there's any piece of paper that ties Gonzo to Dave.
They're all work for hire. Project to project performers. Yeah.
So, and if I spend $1 squillion buying the Muppets, then I would either want to own Dave Goelz or have the right to do whatever I wanted with Gonzo. Of course. And
don't we all want to own Dave Goelz?
I wouldn't mind a little Dave just sitting in the corner. So the fact that that eventually they stopped doing that is testament to the power of, not my argument, but the power of the characters, and the fact that the performers really are quite inseparable. As long as there's only one at a time, I think is the thing. And I think, since then Steve has left, and we've seen Matt take on Kermit, and it's kind of proved the point and proved the counterpoint at the same time, is that Matt is a different Kermit. And if they'd both been doing it at the same time, then people would comment on it. You would be like, oh, and Kermit was on American Idol last night. Which Kermit was it? Was it the Kermit who sounds a bit like this, or the but now that it's just Matt's Kermit, it's Kermit. That's
right.
That's how that works. And we have seen lots of recasts when Jerry left, and Matt took on a lot of those characters. When Matt became Kermit, and then suddenly Peter took on some of those characters as well, and they've always flipped sort of back and forth per the needs of the production, but they've only ever been one at a time, and you can see how the other performers and the other characters adjust their approaches to that, and how that affects the chemistry of the group. But as long as it's only happening one at a time,
right? Because when it's one at a time, you're just passing the baton. We're keeping the character alive from one performer to another.
That's exactly
just
right.
Like you would in animation.
Yes.
If they said Mickey Mouse can only be performed by Walt Disney, then we would have a silent Mickey for the last 80 years.
Absolutely. And Sesame is probably the greatest example of that. Is that Ernie went from Jim to Steve, and then to... Ernie's a bad example, delete that. Ernie's a terrible example. Sesame has been very good at that. When Kevin left, Ryan took on Elmo and was... Look, honestly, I can't tell the difference, and I'm a huge voice guy. I can't tell the difference now. But, at the time, it was news that there's a new kid playing Elmo. But he's the only Elmo, and everyone else treats him like Elmo, and there's no, he's trying to prove he's the best Elmo. He's just Elmo, Right. And now Peter is Ernie. Now Matt is Big Bird. Eric is Oscar, and he's just Oscar. He's not trying to prove he's a better Oscar than any other Oscar out there. He's just Oscar, and that's exactly that's how it should be.
And I think that a big part of it too is we as Muppet fanatics think about this kind of thing a lot.
Way more than
we know all the players, and we think about what's going on behind the scenes below the frame. But what the goal is we don't want like normal people to have to think
That's
about
exactly
these things.
right. If you are thinking about it, that's ruining the magic. And it's always,
Yes.
if you're thinking about the puppeteer at all, that ruins the magic. And they've been so good forever at hiding all of that stuff. Just to the performance level, you don't see the strings,
Yeah.
you don't see the rods anymore. That any kind of friction, that stops that, can really ruin the magic. To use Disney's term, you don't spoil the magic. So
Yeah.
so like it's a point of personal pride that I stood up to that. But I can't really take any credit for winning at all, of course.
Well, you say that, but I do believe that the fan voice, was important in that campaign, and it really does show the power of fandom, even if the power is just a smidge. Like, it's maybe that smidge that's kind of, toppled the tower. That I don't know what metaphors I was mixing there. I don't think there's even more metaphors. But you know what I'm trying to say. Like, we were the straw that actually broke the camel's back.
The smidge that broke the camel's back would be great. That I'll take that. I'll take that as a
Sure.
Muppets changed my life so much when I was 7, 8 years old. If I had even a tenth of a smidge impact on that is my way of giving back. That is amazing. That is absolutely amazing. And also the fact that like kind of level of fan knowledge, that minutia, that stupid little guy in the back of my brain that's going, well, actually, that paid off in the real world, even just to run the campaign. Like, oh my gosh, 8-year-old me is so thrilled. By that.
I totally relate to that. So in your real life, outside of the silly Muppet fan stuff we do, we mentioned before you are a TV comedy writer, and you wrote for many years for Rove.
Yes.
For Rove Live, which, well, I think most American audiences don't know who Rove is. So I would love if you could explain who this guy was and what the show was.
He actually did a few appearances on Leno back in the day, but Leno was on, I think, 49 nights a week for 1,000 years, so no one will remember. But he was the biggest talk show host in Australia for a while. We would do a weekly talk show host, and it ran for about 10. A weekly talk show called Rove, sometimes called Rove Live, depending on which network and which branding. But Rove McManus was the guy. Rove was the show, and a weekly talk show for about 10 years. And I was one of the senior writers all the way through.
And Rove did some work with the Sesame Street characters here and there over the years, either visiting the Sesame set in New York or the characters going out to Australia.
When at the time, because there weren't that many outlets as far as like primetime TV in Australia. So whenever Cookie or Grover or Elmo came to Australia between 1999 and 2008, if they did an interview, they would be on Rove. And I was there, I would post for photos or whatever. Very occasionally I would get to write questions, so I could suggest, basically I could give Kevin Clash set up lines, and then he would have no idea who it was coming from. He would, it's not like we sat in a room and riffed jokes, but if I gave him a setup line and he came up with a gag, then that was a win for me in my book. Not for my resume, but it was a win,
Yes.
And so, we did a little bit of that. Miss Piggy, I think one of Eric's first interviews as Miss Piggy was via satellite to Rove, and it was for the Christmas movie. So that was fun. I did the research document on that and wrote a bunch of the questions. And I was actually slightly in contact with Eric at the time to sort of, I said through the segment producer, I said, what questions should we ask Miss Piggy? If you had the chance to interview Miss Piggy, what would you ask her? And I vividly remember he said, it doesn't matter, she'll answer whatever she wants anyway.
Well, that's a very Frank Oz answer.
Isn't it? And it's,
it's quite as prepared. That's great, though. So you basically have written for Muppets, is what we're saying.
Oh, look,
No, you could say yes. No, you could say yes. It's fine.
I was Grover's personal writer when he was in... I kind of, sort of, not really, but enough. Enough, not for the resume, but enough for in my heart. I'm fine with that.
Were there any specific things that you got to collaborate with them on, that like any good prompts that you gave them that's kind of stand out to you? Or maybe like, are there any good like behind the scenes, like getting to hang out with them and like, you know, kind of interact with these characters that you grew up loving so much?
Meeting the Muppets is super weird. When I met Grover, and I was hanging with Eric, and he disappeared for a moment, and then I was talking to this was on the Sesame Street set. I was talking with Matt Vogel, and Eric disappeared for a second, and he comes back, and he's got Grover, and I'd never looked a Muppet face to like in the eye before, and all the cliches are true. You tune out the guy who's standing there, and you're just looking. And I said, "Grover, great to finally meet you." And I went to shake his hand, and I shook his dead hand because Eric's operating the left arm,
Right.
and so I just. Effectively, I just manhandled this puppet. I just picked up the arm and shook it round.
Yeah.
And Grover says, "Oh, just help yourself there." He said, forgive me, it's an old war wound. And like now I'm just riffing with Grover, and at the same time very aware that I'm like just playing with someone else's puppet without intending to.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and all the cliches are true. So are true. I pose with Grover, and I've got my arm around him, and I think Jim Martin might have been taking the photo, and Eric was just trying to frame himself out, and I was paying no attention to these performers who I adore, because I'm sitting there just chatting with Grover. I had one other example I was going to bring, and I can't remember what that was. It's coming to me. I don't know if you can use this, because this was against the rules, but this was a big moment for me when I was on the set of Sesame. Kids come, they want to meet the Muppet. The kids, of course, they want to meet the Muppets. They want to give hugs to people. Jen Barnhart had Mama Bear, and there was a little girl who came and wanted a hug with Mama Bear. Jen is left-handed, so she was right-handing Mama Bear, and there was nobody else around. And Mama Bear leans in for the hug, and instinctively, literally without thinking about it, I've done a bit of puppetry. I'm not a Muppeteer. I've done a bit of puppetry.
Sure.
But anyway, so I took the arm rod and just gave her the other half of the hug.
Oh, that's nice.
And it was never acknowledged, nor should it be. I wasn't admonished, which I think is the greatest acknowledgement that I could get. But like, I helped Mama Bear hug a little girl, and that little girl will remember Mama Bear forever, and have no clue who Jen ever was, and have less than no clue who that random Australian guy ever was. But to me, that kind of epitomised like everything you dreamed of on a Muppet set, that like everyone's helping out. It's all about love. It's all about, you know. Yeah. Meanwhile, there's probably three security guys just going, "Get that kid away from Mama Bear."
All right, well, I'm updating your Muppet Wiki article right now to say you are the performer of Mama Bear's right arm.
Official Mama Bear right arm.
I mean, I can share this story because it's similar. But I was at Sesame once, and Ryan Dillon was doing something with Elmo, just like a short YouTube thing. Like, it was literally like 30 seconds, maybe. And he needed a second puppeteer to handle the right arm for Elmo, just the arm rod. I think he was supposed to be holding a book, so he couldn't just be dead.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Well, there's nobody here." And he goes, "Joe, you know how to puppeteer. Come here." And I was like, "Oh God, here we go. This is your chance."
Exactly. And this is how every great puppeteer's career starts.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like Richard Hunt throwing Elmo at Kevin Clash and saying, "Do something with this guy," but it was just his arm for a 30-second video. And so I was like, "Okay, here we go." Like, I hadn't seen the script. I didn't know what we were gonna do. He's like, "Just hold the book, and then then Elmo will put the book down." And I was like, "Got it." So we did that. He's holding the book. He puts the book down, and I'm like, "Now what do I do?" And I watched that video now. I will not tell you which video it is because I do not want people to find this. And Elmo's right arm is like, it's stiff as a board. It's like Elmo's moving around. The arm is just standing I was thinking of like when the stories of Frank Oz going like, you don't want the other arm to emote too much. Like, he would put Cookie Monster's left hand would go on the right hand to hold it down. So I was like, I don't want to get too crazy. Well, I went too far in the other direction, and I just completely messed it up, and it was fine. Nobody cared, but yes, it was still a thrill to for an official thing to
Yes,
be
yeah,
able
of
to
course.
just to hold that arm rod,
It's
just a little
amazing.
bit.
It's amazing. Another possibly more broadcast friendly story was, and I also met Cookie Monster, and I posed for a photo with Cookie Monster, and for whatever reason, the person taking the photo was being really perfectionist and wanted to take a bunch of different ones from a bunch of different angles, make sure the light. And so I didn't mind, but I had put my arm around Cookie and held Cookie's hand, and so I ended up holding Cookie's hand for probably a minute. And at that point, having hugged Cookie Monster, but at that point, I became aware that I'm holding David Rudman's hand, and that's a weird thing for an adult to be doing. And I just said, "Is this a bit weird?" And Cookie just went, "It got weird, didn't it?" And that's my favourite Muppet interaction of all time, is Cookie Monster telling me it got weird.
Yep.
As patient and wonderful as David is, you don't want to be a 38-year-old guy holding his hand for a photo for that long. The poor man.
I think there's a lot of 38-year-olds who might be listening to this podcast who are like, I would absolutely hold hands with David Rudman. So, Kynan, I don't know if you knew this, but you have a baby son. Did you know this?
Oh my gosh! Yeah, it's come up, and it's good to be reminded from time to time. I've got the Pigs in Space T-shirt on, and
I didn't notice it. I saw the stars. Yeah.
Well, it hadn't occurred to me that there are stars on it, and just yesterday, you must have this. People were like, you're wearing a T-shirt and you forget what T-shirt it is, and people are like suddenly,
Yes.
"Oh, who's your favourite Star Wars character?" And you're like, "Why would you?" Oh, so yesterday I'm wearing Pigs in Space, and I guess if I expected anything, he would eventually one day point at the pig and go, because that's how we. He's one. He doesn't do the pig noise yet. But what he did do was he pointed at the star and he went, which is Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And I was like,
you're moving your
my...
fingers. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yes.
So he pointed at the star and starts twinkling his fingers, doing the actions for Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And I had forgotten that there was a star on the Pigs in Space logo. And I'm like, you are the smartest kid ever. Kid ever. But yeah,
Wow.
so I have a 1-year-old son, and the reason you bring it up is because his middle name is Henson. That I'm assuming, not just giving me an opening to talk about my kid, because no one wants to hear about my kid.
To both, but yes, I did want you to reveal his middle name, which unfortunately now people will know what his security answers are if he ever, if they want to steal his identity at a later time. But I think it's adorable that you gave him the middle name Henson.
My partner is I don't know what the phrase is, but she's been a name nerd forever, and she's always wanted a kid, so she's had a short list of boys' names and girls' names for her whole life, and she's on she's been on various name board communities, like name discussion communities, where they all throw shade at other people's trendy stupid names, and how there are 9 different ways of spelling Darcy, and so she's had a short list of first names for both boys and girls, and I didn't object to any of them, and I knew I would never have a say, so I was like, that is fine. And we found out we were having a boy. She told me the name she liked, and I'm like, absolutely, signing on. And then we had a conversation. I said, how do you feel about the middle name Henson? And it took a lot she had the argument in her head. We didn't go back and forth. She just went, "This is important to you?" And I went, "Yeah, it is." So the only real argument, the only real discussion that I ever had to have was kind of explaining it to people like her dad, who's a Greek immigrant, of like, who is this guy that he's worth naming your grandson after? And
right.
and doing that really distilled what it is that Muppets has meant to me, through the course of my entire life. And it feels like so in the fan community, I was a little embarrassed about it, because it feels like the sort of thing that you would maybe think of when you were 15 and then grow out of. Or I wouldn't have given him the first name Henson, but as a middle name, it's a thing that he can carry around and hopefully aspire to in some small way. It's not a first name like Kynan, where you have to spell it every time, and then people are like, "Oh, that's interesting. Where did it come from?" And the answer is, "My mum liked a weird name." If you're going to saddle a kid with an unusual name, then give them a story and a reason for it. And so, my son's middle name is Henson, and I hope to God he doesn't ruin it. He's got to live up to it.
I love it. I think it's such a cool thing. First of all, I think it's better that you name him Henson and not using Jim's middle name, because I think Maury would not
Maury.
have much of an interesting story.
There was a bit of back and forth from Vaya where she was trying to find out is there another Muppet oriented name that would fit better as a name, because Henson stands out, and there really isn't. I was like, we're not calling a kid Gonzo.
Right.
So
like Kermit is a real name, but it's cutesy, it's silly. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so, I literally was looking through the wiki at various Fraggle names to see if there's anything that was useful, and I'm like, okay, what about Uncle Traveling? Is Uncle Traveling a good name for you?
What about Large Marvin Barker? But that's the other thing is, like, I've heard lots of stories about people who, like, they want to honor Jim Henson by naming their pets after Muppets.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've heard of a lot of, like, Rolfs and Sprockets and Wembleys and Gobos and things like that. But I don't know if I've ever heard of someone literally naming, a child or a pet or anything else after Jim himself.
And it was. I think part of me was thinking, if I fail as a father completely, at least I've done this one thing. Like, there's one mark that I'll make. I'll be... It also means that I'll be obliged to explain to him what it is Muppets means. Like, outside of just showing him Sesame Street all the time. Outside of informing him that Fraggle Rock is his favourite show, even though... all the Fraggles are dead now. Not true. Actually, the Fraggles...
The Fraggles are back, Kynan. They're doing a whole new show on Apple TV.
They are back, which I literally cannot wait for.
Same, yes, but yes,
it was a bad joke, but
but here's the other thing: is, like, we know a lot of people in the Muppet fan community who have kids, and they've made it a point to teach their kids not just the joy of Sesame Street or the Muppet Show or Fraggle Rock, but to say, like, okay, that voice, that's Dave Goelz, that voice, that's Richard Hunt, or like, this is how this puppet works, this is how Kermit rode a bike, this is how Agra walks, and moves her head and eyes at the same time, and, like, you would have done that anyway. But now it's like now it's like a requirement. Like, you can't phone it in.
Now it carries weight. Yeah. And you want to do it right. You want to do justice to it. You want to make sure he knows the difference between Letters to Santa and Very Merry Muppet Christmas Movie. He's got to know that.
What are the differences between those two? We don't need to get into that.
I just struggled to remember the names of each of them.
And you wrote so many Christmas articles for ToughPigs back in the day. You should know this stuff left and right.
It's Mr. Willoughby in one column and everything else. That's all.
That's fair.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm very excited for little baby Henson and who he's going to grow up to be and how much of a geek he's going to be. Maybe we'll hire him to write for ToughPigs in another.
Yeah, or maybe
10, 15 years.
Maybe he'll rebel and he'll just be like, "Screw you, Dad! I'm a My Little Pony man," and that's fine too.
Little baby brony.
Well, because friendship is magic, Joe, and that's what ToughPigs has been teaching us all along.
It's true. I can't argue with that. And he'll change his middle name to Applejack. All right, so Kynan, as we wrap up this interview, I do want to ask you one more question. If you could blue sky whatever the next big Muppet project would be, and we're talking like now, like 2021, to kind of revitalize the Muppet brand, what would you have them do? What is your ideal project?
Yeah, okay. My ideal project, in all seriousness, is like 17 different small projects because they can, because there's no reason why Gonzo shouldn't host the like a Midnight Weird movie on ABC. There's no reason why Fozzie Bear couldn't present a bunch of stand-up specials as the host. There's no reason why Rolf the dog couldn't be like a semi-regular correspondent on Jimmy Kimmel. all of these opportunities that exist that they only really do now for promo for the other big thing. And the thing about whatever the other big thing is, it's never going to be perfect. It's just never going to be perfect. Muppets, the Muppets. What was the sitcom called? The Muppets.
Well, the 2051 was just called The Muppets. Yes, and then they did Muppets Now on Disney Plus.
Yeah, so none of it is ever going to be perfect. The Muppets sitcom was a huge comeback. It got so many comeback headlines. It was a huge, huge comeback, and there were things to like, there were things not to like. It was and it wasn't the thing that brought the Muppets back in a huge snowball and flood. But nothing's going to be. Muppets Now was great, but it's it's like okay, it's enough to make people go, I want more Muppets. But more Muppets shouldn't be a big deal. I think if Muppets is everywhere. The way Sesame Street is everywhere. There's no moment where people are like, oh, I remember that show. When is that going to make a comeback? It's just there. And that's the way Muppets should be. Like, it would be nice to have a Haunted Mansion Halloween special, but for it not to have the expectation of this is the thing that brings us back to 1981. It would be it's just nice to have Muppet content out there without that kind of pressure on it, because the Muppets should be throwaway. Like, the Muppet movie is an anomaly in that it's it was an enormous success and an enormous distillation of everything that the Muppets lived up to. But everything since then and everything before then was like, this is just fun. This is a throwaway. Look at Muppet Caper versus the Muppet movie, and it's almost a reaction against the Muppet movie. It's a story that doesn't quite make sense. It's jokes. It's anti-jokes. It's poking fun at their own success. It's just silly. And the more times they do silly stuff, I think Muppets Celebrate Jim Henson nailed it better than anything. Like, it managed to be important and sell the message that it wanted to sell, and also, had an all-singing accountant marching band. Like, just right. That's the kind of thing. That's the kind of thing that I want. I want Muppets Now to be year-round, so that if one episode sucks, it doesn't mean you have to analyze the Muppets again. I like that. They just should be out there. They just should be out there. And Kermit should be allowed to sing the Rainbow Connection on every single show. Every
just
network.
On a loop. Yeah.
Every
day,
thing,
a new one.
For no reason at all. ESPN should just be able to say, and we're cutting away for just a moment because we have Kermit singing Rainbow Connection. Take it away, Kermit.
And so I love the idea. I think we should have more Muppet stuff going on all the time. In fact, we should have so much that we should probably hire a few more people to do Kermits, a couple more Gonzos, a couple Fozzes.
What would be really helpful is there were just a production line, so we could have one in the theme park. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love it. And we should start a website. We'll call it Save the Muppets, by which I mean save all of the Muppets and all
save all of the Muppets, as many of them as possible. Yeah.
Well, Kynan, thank you so much for being here. This was a blast, just chatting with you, looking back at the early days of ToughPigs. Where can people find you on the internet? Are you on the internet? Are you on social media?
I'm kind of quietly on social media these days, so you can Google me and find all of my ToughPigs articles, and if you know where to look, if you've collected the right Muppet tapes, then you can trade for my social handles. How about that?
And people can watch your work on Frogger on NBC.
Frogger on NBC Peacock, I think from August. It's tremendously silly.
Great.
But it was really good fun. Yeah.
Looking forward to it. What a ridiculous concept for a game show.
For a game show. Thanks for talking to me, Joe. I can't take credit for a lot of ToughPigs. I had minor involvement and a huge amount of fun when I was involved, but it's just been such a pleasure to watch you guys take the reins and run with it and bring it to a 20-year anniversary as a fan site that I just check that it's just part of my routine, that I just will read it now for pleasure. And occasionally throw an article, but what is that? One article in the last 15 years.
You've done literally one.
Which was a highlight. Let's not deny it, and deserves.
You know what? It was a highlight for
banner.
Me. It was a highlight for me to get you back into the fold.
Oh, because old man Barker is back.
Well, and, I mean, you're a great writer. You're a hilarious writer. You know and love the Muppets. And I tell you this many times, but I'm telling you again on the record for everyone to hear, you have an open invitation to write whatever you want, whenever you want for Tough Pigs. We will always, always, always publish your work and look forward to it. So
that is so great.
Do more,
That's so great
do more for the website. Come on back anytime.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And to everyone listening, please make sure you're checking out Tough Pigs on all our social media places, like Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. We also have a Patreon. If you want to throw us a little bit of money because you like us just that much, feel free to visit patreon.com/toughpigs. That's where we're at. And join us next week for another Tough Pigs at 20 when we keep on talking to these fine folks who help make this website happen. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you then. Goodbye.